Today's video is made possible through cooperation with Coal Iron Works. I love my power hammer, but it has the same problem so many power hammers have, and that is the lack of the finesse and the control for doing single blows. It's really easy to get multiple blows under a power hammer, and sometimes that means you get a double strike with your tooling, and that is undesirable. Generally, working with tooling, whether it's top tools like punches, fullers, chisels, things like that, or some bottom dies that give you a specific impression, the work needs to be controlled so it doesn't jump and move from one place to another and you end up with something really choppy and ugly looking. And with some help from our friends at Coal Iron Works, we now have the ability to do good, powerful single blows in the shop with the new KA75 power hammer. Now, this is something that I've been talking to Coal Iron Works about since last fall when they first took over production of the KA75 power hammer. And a few weeks ago when they started having production models available, they sent one out for us to take a look at. This is a single blow hammer. It's not exactly the same as a regular power hammer, although it will do a lot of what you can do under a power hammer or a press. This is a completely different tool, and its strength is in a really powerful single blow, although you can get rapid blows depending on how fast you can operate the controls. As far as space goes, this takes up less space than just about any other large tool in the shop, and it weighs less than even my 25-pound Little Giant does. So if you need something that is a little easier to maneuver around the shop and get set up, this might be a good option. My plan for today's video is just to explore some of the possibilities, get some scrap material out, and just do some forging under this, not necessarily making anything specific, but just trying it out, seeing what it'll do, seeing how it handles top tools, bottom tools. So join me as we explore the possibilities of the KA75. I think my first exposure to this tool was at a Rocky Mountain Smiths conference. Boy, it's probably 20 years ago. I think it was Bob Bergman brought one out and demonstrated how it functioned. And I've been intrigued by them ever since then. So when Coal Iron Works came out with this, I was really excited to give one a try. And I think this is going to have some real potential in my shop. Here I'm just punching a hammer eye. This is not an ideal punch for a hammer eye. It's a little bit large in diameter, it's been rounded over a little bit, and it's a little bit long. This would have gone smoother with a shorter punch to get more stroke out of the hammers, and that would have allowed for a little more powerful strike. But it did do the job, and with a better design punch that would have been much faster and much more efficient. Then I'll do a little bit more forging on this hammerhead just to clean it up. I'm not going to finish making the hammer for this video. I probably will not do a video about this hammer, but I will try to get it finished up at some point. And who knows, maybe it'll end up on the Etsy shop. This is really more just seeing what this hammer does, and the single blow capability allows for some really precise work that you may have trouble with under some typical power hammers. Of course, you can do all of this same stuff under a hydraulic press, and if you're making hammers for a living and doing a lot of hammers, a hydraulic press might be the preferred tool. But for doing one-off things and using a variety of top tools, bottom tools, spring tools, things of that nature, this really does present a solution to a lot of the things you might encounter in a small shop. And since it has such a small footprint, it's pretty easy to fit in. I've got it shoehorned back into a little corner here. Probably not the most convenient place for it. I'm going to have some size limitations, although I can easily work the end of a 4-foot bar, maybe even a 5-foot bar, if I'm careful how I approach the tool. And that's probably all I ever really need from something like this. Mostly I'll be using this for specific elements that might be added to a larger piece, but I probably won't be using this to do anything in the middle of a 6-foot bar. Heck, I have trouble working a 6-foot bar in my shop anyways. That's really pushing the limit of what I can do in this shop. Here I'm working on a handle for a fireplace poker. I'm just exploring some different ideas. This end piece, this knob on the end, is something I've done under the power hammer, but it's really easy to screw it up under a power hammer. You can go from almost right to completely trashed in just a couple of seconds. And here with the one-hit blows, I'm finding this really much more precise, and if I'm real careful on the foot pedal, I can get very gentle blows, just come down and barely tap it. So the possibilities as I get to know this tool and develop that fine control skill are really going to be endless. Now looking at this spring tool that I have under here, it's got a Hardy shank on it that goes on an adapter for a power hammer I don't even own anymore. And that Hardy shank can come in handy at times, and I might make an adapter for this tool. So I'm going to leave it on there, but it looks like it's about to strike that upper die, and it really is not anywhere near as close as it looks like in the video. But I'm also very aware of where it's at and make sure I keep it away from there. And probably I will make a similar tool without the Hardy shank, so I've got one that is easy to flip back and forth and work one side and then the other side. Here again, I'm ending up with way nicer results than I've been able to do under the power hammer trying similar techniques. I frequently have to resort to filing or grinding to clean up the beveled edges on this kind of an octagonal handle, just because it's easy to get a little bit off under the power hammer and end up putting extra facets in that you didn't want. With a single blow control of the KA75, I'm really finding this quite easy to get the tool right where I want it and then make the strike and not worry about the handle double striking or otherwise just being a little off because of the speed of the hammer. A little bit of back and forth. You work one area and when you work the next area you kind of mess up the first thing, so you go back and work it lightly, and after a few back and forth sessions you can get pretty much what you're after. This spring tool is made out of a bearing race, and it creates a little ring or ball detail. It's also getting stuck. It's got some sharp edges on it that I'm going to need to clean up, and it wants to kind of jam up on the work as you forge it, so it's going to need a little bit of refinement. I also think I can design a better tool for this if I'm going to keep doing this type of a handle element. And in the long run, I'm pleased enough with this that I think that's what I'm going to do. I really like the way this came out. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and finish the poker and draw the end out under the KA75. Drawing out long bars is not where this thing shines. It will do the job, but a regular power hammer or a power hammer with drawing dies would be a lot more efficient. You can get combo dies for this. One end is drawing die, one end is flat die, and that would be a good solution if this is the only tool you have in your shop capable of doing that kind of work. But since I have the Little Giant and I have the other power hammer that I have combo dies for, I just want to leave the flat dies in this because it opens up so many doors for using top tooling and bottom tooling. And I think for me that's my number one use for this hammer, is to use tooling under it. But even though this is not as efficient as a conventional power hammer, this is still way faster than doing it all by hand at the anvil, unless you also had a striker at the anvil. If you haven't noticed it already, it's worth mentioning that the entire head of this tool goes up and down with the stroke. There's no frame surrounding it, so you don't want to ever be positioned over the top of that head. That would be a really bad place to be in, nor do you want to set anything on there. It's a flat surface on top, and it would be really tempting to set the tool you need for the next heat up there, and then push the pedal and launch the tool up into the air. It does not go up anywhere near as fast as it comes down, but I still wouldn't want to have tools flying around the shop. Now, of course, the obvious safety concern is don't stick your fingers underneath the hammer. But another concern is that when you're not hammering with this, it is completely quiet. It just sits there on a full air compressor of air, and the hammer itself makes no noise. It doesn't cycle up and down like the Samac does. It's just sitting there waiting for somebody to step on that treadle and then run through its cycle. So you have to be aware that if that head is up, it is ready to strike, and be very careful around it. Don't be changing dies without blocking it up and turning the air off or anything like that. The reality is that all these tools have risks, and if you're aware of the danger, you can minimize those risks. You just have to pay attention to what you're doing and not take unnecessary chances. This is one of the most useful tools you could have for working under a power hammer. It can be used as a flatter, or as you saw earlier, using it as a puller to draw the bar out. But you can also use conventional handheld tools like this flatter that we made in a previous video. And this works very well with that. This is probably not a tool I would use under a regular power hammer, but it works very nicely under the KA75. Another place this shines is for these bottom dies that make specific elements. In this case, it's a mouse, and the die was made by Clay Spencer. That mouse will need a little cleanup. There's a little flash around the edge, and you kind of expect that with any open bottom die like this. Better to have a little squeeze out than it is to not fill the die completely with the material. Now, drawing a sharp point down with the square edge dies is a little bit harder. And here again, this is a place where that flatter comes in handy. Because of the curve on top, it will seek the flat surface and match whatever the taper is. I go gently with the spring fuller. This is powerful enough you could really go too deep easily. And this goes back into another bottom die. This is just another decorative element. We are jumping around a lot. We'll get back to the mouse. I'm going to draw the tail out. I'm going to turn this into a little key ring and just draw the tail, put a little curl into it. As useful as this hammer is, or any of the other big power tools, they are not a replacement for hand skills at the anvil. Now, like I say, I'm going to go ahead and finish the poker, even though that wasn't the goal of today's video. I just was really happy with the way the handle came out, and I wanted to see what the finished tool was. So I split the end with a bandsaw, and then I can open that up to make a pretty classic poker and hook combination. Now, to get a clean taper, I'm just going to go ahead and do this on the anvil. With the right tooling, it could be done under that striking hammer. So I'll go ahead and finish this up, and I'll just put my typical paste wax finish on it. I'm really pretty happy with the way this poker came out, and I think this is something that's going to wind up on the Etsy shop. And I'll look at refining this process so that I can do more pokers with a similar handle in the future. Well, it's a quick introduction to the KA75. Cole Iron Works refers to this as a single blow striking hammer, and I think that's a better way to look at it. It is different than the Little Giant or the Samac. It doesn't have that continuous run, and because of that, it has completely different strengths and weaknesses to other power hammers. The single blow capability and the ability to work with various top tools or open bottom dies, spring tools, all of that kind of stuff is what gives this tool its strength. Drawing out long bars, maybe not. Forge welding Damascus, probably not the best thing. There are certainly places for this in some shops, power hammers in other shops, hydraulic presses in other shops. I'm fortunate enough to now have all of those options, and they are all different tools that will get used together to create projects. There's going to be a lot of times where the power hammer might be the main tool, but I'll come over to this to get those single blow hits that I need for certain tooling applications. And again, I think top tooling is where this thing is really going to excel. Does that mean you need to buy all of those tools to be able to forge in your shop? Of course it doesn't. If you can only afford one and you like the idea of using top tools, you're doing one-off projects, you don't want to tool up and make dies for a hydraulic press, or you don't want to have the noise and the massive foundation you need for a power hammer, this may be a good option. It will do a lot of the things those other tools will do, just perhaps not as efficiently as those other tools do. Just like the KA75 will excel at what it does when those other tools aren't quite as ideal. Now, as far as the specs, I'll refer to the owner's manual here. Total weight of the KA75 is 450 pounds. The ram weight is 100 pounds. I think the original must have been a 75-pound ram or something, and that's why the name KA75. But this is actually a 100-pound ram weight on this. It has a 10-inch stroke and is capable of up to 120 blows per minute, but that depends on how fast you tap your foot. One tap, one blow. Hold your foot down, it'll clamp, which also comes in really handy, and my other power hammers don't have that ability. There are some hammers out there that do. I also found working on the poker handle, if you push very gently on the pedal, the hammer will come down very gently. So you can get some real finesse and real control out of this that I haven't had in other tooling. So I'm really looking forward to working with this a little bit more and doing more things like this. I'm really happy with the way this handle came out. I want to explore this idea in a lot more detail for future projects. As far as air goes, it's 10 to 20 CFM at 100 PSI, and I think they say it will run between 80 and 120 PSI. So if you need to tone it down a little bit, you can turn it down. Today I was working at 110 PSI for this hammer. Now, I'm just getting to know the KA75. It's going to be months, maybe years, before I figured out everything that this will do for me in my shop. I really think it's going to create some new possibilities that weren't very convenient in the past. So I'm really going to like having this here, and thank you very much to Cole Iron Works for providing this hammer to look at here at Black Bear Forge. And thank you, each and every one of you, for watching the video, with a special shout out to my channel members and my Patreon patrons. Channel members receive early access to the videos. Patreon patrons not only receive early access, but they receive the videos ad-free over on Patreon. So if you're tired of the annoying ads here on YouTube, Patreon might be for you. In any case, I hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, but have fun, stay safe, wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next video.